Hey guys, Dave from Nerdarchy, for nerds by nerds. Hang out with this nerd.
Nerdarchy's Ted.
And Nerdarchy says you don't have to roll that.
Hey guys, jump down to the description below where you can sign up for Nerdarchy, the newsletter. It's a great way to get gaming tips as well as learn how to game in Nerdarchy.
So, Mason, is it?
Mason, yep.
He sent us an email, and he wanted to know about passive checks and when to roll and when not to roll. Kind of, is that like the gist of it?
Well, it was something where a situation came up where he tried to throw a lasso to an object across the room. He's got a decent passive perception, and his investigate is high as well. But because he didn't specifically say, "I want to see how large the object is," the DM said, "Well, you failed because you aren't aware of how big the table was."
Okay, so there's like the rule of common sense at some point that has to come into things. Like, there's certain things you just don't have to roll for. Like, I want to walk across the room. Okay, you do it, and now. Is the floor covered in lava? Now it might be more difficult. You might have to like figure some stuff out. But there's just some things that are kind of automatic. And, basically gauging the size of an object or something like that, that's just one of those things, especially if you have a passive check. It's just like me. I can look in front of me, I see this camera, I know I can go over and pick it up. Now the camera is actually sitting on our gaming table, which is a pool table that's kind of been converted, right? I can look at it and go, I don't know if I can pick that up. I could try and pick that up. So that would be like a check. Also, the thing to keep in mind, ability checks aren't like combat rolls. They're not like saving throws, and they're not like attack rolls. They don't have auto fail and auto success. If you roll a 20, you can still fail. If you roll 1, you can still pass. You can still succeed. So
it's about whether you can hit that target number.
Yes.
And 5th edition really does a good job about mitigating that large spectrum that used to exist in previous editions. I'm not going to swim up a waterfall because I rolled a DC 80. I'm not going to sneak through a wall of force because I can hit DC 120. They've got, essentially 5 through 30. That's what you need to do. So if you've got that -1 strength modifier and you got to pick up that kind of sort of heavy rock and you roll a 3, you know what? You're probably not picking up that rock. But the guy who has a 18 strength, he doesn't need to roll because the minimum he can get is a 5.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And I will, if someone makes skill checks in my game, a lot of times I will give them, depending on what kind of check. But if it's like a knowledge-based check, I will generally give them some kind of information, but they may not know what they were looking for. But again, you just have to look, what's the minimum they can roll? Well, they have an 18, and if they roll a 1, that's a 5. Well, anything that you would consider a DC 5, they've automatically passed it, so there's no reason to make them roll. If it's a much higher level character and they have a 20 or 22 in that stat, well, that's a +6.
Plus proficiency.
Which is probably going to be okay. They automatically pass 5 or 10, so you don't have to make them roll for that. I guess sometimes DMs get a little hung up on having characters pass checks.
It's one of those things that some DMs, they just want people to roll dice. They want the die to determine whether or not it's successful, and they forget that the idea behind what RPGs are is it's a cooperative story. Everybody's there to have fun.
Yeah, well, yeah, and that's the other thing too. Does rolling that die is it going to make the gaming session any more interesting? So that could be a factor too. You can just go, well, I think this character could just do that, and regardless of what their modifiers are and their proficiency bonuses, you could just deem as the DM to go, I think that's within reason. I'm just going to have it happen, unless there's a story reason to go, well, it'll actually be more tension if I have them make the check and they either pass or fail.
Mm-hmm.
Now, granted, that could be a trap too. And I as a young DM, I did this dumb shit all the time, where I'd be like, yeah, they have to pass this check to go any further, all right? And then no one passes the check, and your game comes to a grinding halt because I didn't think of another way for them to get through.
Right.
I made it all rely on making this one check.
Now, a lot of things are going to be, what type of DM are you? What kind of game do your players want? And by game, I don't necessarily mean story, but the actual mechanics of how you're operating. Now, I'm introducing my family to role-playing games. My wife, she did a handful of RPG campaigns before we met, but my kids are 8 and 4, and I got No Thank You Evil for Christmas because I wanted to show one of my passions to my kids. Now, my daughter is 4, she'll be 5 next month, and she sees, oh, well, we do things, we roll dice. So every time she's going to do something, she wants to roll the die. And I have to teach her that that's not always the way it works. Sometimes you want to do something and you can just do it.
Right. So don't get in the trap of the almost 5-year-old and always reach for the die. Wait for your DM to tell you to roll the die as a player. But as the DM, it's okay if they don't roll a die. You only want to bring the die mechanics into it if it matters.
If it matters, or if there's a chance that they don't know it or don't have the ability to do it.
You always have to ask yourself, is this going to make the game more fun and or interesting? And the answer is no, why bother? So you want to do that. And then again, like I said, don't fall in the trap that I did, where you basically paint yourself into a corner by going, oh yeah, I'm such a great DM, and I'm going to be so challenging on my players. They're not even getting past this section without making that die roll, right?
Or they didn't ask me how many hit points I was lost. So over 3 days of travel, they didn't get healed because they didn't know that they were down hit points.
Yeah, there is that too. There's certain things that as a player you don't think about, but as the character you would have no choice. It'd be, you'd be dealing with it, and it'd be obvious to you.
Oh, I ran out of rations, but because I didn't ask the DM, I'm just going to starve now because I didn't think about saying that I buy rations. You don't go on a journey without buying rations. Come on.
Right. Well, yeah. There might be a little bit of wiggle room in that one if like the character's inexperienced to travel, but like the ranger or the barbarian, probably not. Like, or if you've been adventuring for a long time. Like one of my favorite things about when I first started playing with Scott Garibay, he had a laundry list of things. He's like, don't even worry about it. Your characters are 10th level adventurers. They're experienced. You don't have to track this, that, or the other thing because they've already got it figured out by this point.
Right.
So with that, guys, in the comments below, let me know what you make your players roll for or don't roll for, and while you're at it, like, share, and subscribe.
You can patronize us in a good way over on Patreon.
So until next time,
stay nerdy.